God bless everybody. Today it is January 2nd of 2024, and this report is going to go over why I believe that Ezekiel 38 and 39, the 10 nations that go against Israel, have already formed, and that Erdogan has been leading this advance of these 10 nations, this unification of these 10 nations that are getting ready to go against Israel since basically the attack of Hamas on October 7th, where they broke into the borders of Israel and slaughtered all these people and then took back almost 240 hostages. And so this original catalyst of Erdogan getting into this game and starting to have this extremely harsh rhetoric against Israel, that we've seen Erdogan on basically a world tour which has united 10 full nations at this point. He's been talking to everybody in the last 2 months, 2 to 3 months, and this is going to culminate into a unification of the Muslim nations against Israel. And this is going to break out anytime, and I've talked about these dates between January 6th and February 5th, with potential siege on Jerusalem around January 15th. This could break out at any time, and so we need to watch what Erdogan's doing. I believe that he's the white horseman. I believe he's going to invade Syria and Iraq, and he's going to bring a quarter of the world into war. He will also bring forth not only Ezekiel 38 and 39, where he brings these 10 nations against Israel and unifies them, but he will also do a destruction of Iran and the Kurds once they align also. So basic since October 7th of 2023, we had that original attack of Hamas into Israel. And if you look at today where we are, these are the numbers that are basically coming out. They indicate that over 22,000 people have been killed in Gaza. You also have more than 55,000 people injured and 1,000 missing and presumed dead that they haven't found under rubble. Now these numbers come from the Hamas propaganda machine. Not from the Palestinians. This is through Hamas, so we don't know if these numbers are inflated. I don't know for sure, and I'm not going to speculate. They could be twice as high as they might be, but we don't know. Israel, on the other hand, has lost 170 soldiers that have been killed on the ground invasion in Gaza, where they had over 1,200 people killed and 240 hostages seized after Hamas launched a multi-pronged attack on Israel on October 7th. And this is what caused this whole thing to melt down. Now, I get it. There's been a lot of friction between the Palestinians, Hamas, and Israel for 70, 75 years. But the original attack came from Hamas into Israel, where they killed 1,200 people and took 240 hostages, and approximately half of those people are still hostages and have not been released. And until that happens, Israel is not going to stop. So since this attack from Hamas onto Israel on October 7th, and then a retaliatory basic strike against Hamas into Palestine from the Israeli forces approximately on October 9th, we've seen Erdogan basically come out, and his rhetoric has been harsh to the point where he's called Netanyahu Hitler, and this is genocide against the Palestinians, and that we should have war crimes against Israel and its leadership and all these different things. And so he's been lashing out since the very beginning. This article came out on October 25th of 23. Now, the articles I'm going to show you are in procession, so you can see since October 7th where, and I probably missed some, he's been on a world tour here. He's been talking to everybody that matters to Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Daniel 8. And so we need to be watching Erdogan and seeing what he's doing. So he's been condemning Israel against this attack on Hamas and how they're doing this basic genocide against the Palestinian people, and how he's going to someday come down and actually protect them or do what he can to protect these Palestinian people, either through geopolitical things on the ground, talking to these leaders, or potentially even a military conflict if this gets really bad. But look at the leaders that he's talked to just in the last year. Each of these are going to relate to Ezekiel 38 and 39 and matter. So let's look at where Erdogan's been and why he's literally forming this coalition against Israel and has been doing this for some time, and now he's ready to do an invasion because he has all his people in line, and all these countries that are following him already have their playbook and they know exactly what's coming because Erdogan's getting ready to invade. Especially, I believe that once Erdogan goes into has this meeting with Iran on January 4th, that will be the time when we will see this all come together. And then on my calendar or paradigm, I show that date between January 6th, a potential siege on Jerusalem on January 15th, and a destruction of these nations on January 30th. This could get extremely harsh quickly. So it indicates that Erdogan demands Muslims unite against Israel. The Turkish and Iranian presidents, this was back in April, you're going to see them come again together on January 4th. So this is a continuing dialogue. So the Turkish President Erdogan and the Iranian president discussed the current situation at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in a phone call on April 7th. And so they reported this on April 9th. He's already been in conversation about this. And like I say, Erdogan is concerned about the Temple Mount. He is not going to allow Iran to destroy it. So if Iran gets in the way of that goal, they will become a casualty. And then if you get into this article, which was on April 13th, Turkey approves military agreement with Ethiopia, which are part of the African nations of the 10 nations. They're basically 3 African nations you need to be watching: Libya, Ethiopia, and Sudan. And so anytime these areas come up, you need to be watching them because they're part of the nations of Ezekiel 38 and 39, and 3 of them, even though they indicate Put and Cush, it expands down into Ethiopia, I believe also. And Ethiopia is in a position to where they're close to the Red Sea. Sudan is also just below Egypt and would also affect the Red Sea. And so the Red Sea is a mess as we're watching the Houthis basically bomb it with all these missiles. And we have a 20 ship or 20 country coalition trying to protect this area. And we just saw Iran push a warship into that area. That whole escalation is going to get extreme soon. So just realize that Turkey also on April 13th of this year approved a military agreement with Ethiopia amid escalations between Cairo and Addis Ababa. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So realize this is happening, and this happened, which is interesting. Look at how he did this. So Turkish parliament approved a military agreement signed with Ethiopia in 2021, just hours before the parliament went on recess due to the May 14th elections, which was in Turkey. Remember, Turkey moved the election from like April to May, which May 14th is Israel's birthday. I brought that up in a couple videos. And that the agreement entered into force after President Erdogan signed the legislation and published it in the official gazette on April 10th. While many international agreements wait to be ratified in the new legislative term, it is noteworthy that the government passed the agreement through parliamentary approval at the last minute. So they didn't sit on this, and Erdogan got his way, and now he's talking to Ethiopia. When you get into this article, it talks about Azerbaijan. Okay, so this is September. Now we moved into September of 25 of 23, right prior to the attack on Israel, which happened on October 7th. So he's up in Azerbaijan. He's genociding the Armenians. He's trying to build that corridor between Turkey and the Caspian Sea, and so it's required that in his opinion or in his ideology that he needs that corridor, and so he has to take Armenia out so he gains access to all that. Also, you have the Ulai River that starts up there and ends up in Shush, Iran, and so that's all connected. And so Erdogan has had a number of meetings with the Azerbaijan's people and their government so that they can discern how to deal with the Armenian issue that they're having up there. And they've had all kinds of fighting up there. This has been going on for some time, and Erdogan wants control of this northern border above Iran. When you wait into November 18th of 2023, President Erdogan goes to Sudan and has a leader to discuss Gaza. Okay, so now he's in Sudan. We just talked about Sudan, how it's up against the Red Sea, and that's going to be a factor as we move forward because the Houthis are involved in this too. And so you now have potential threats on both sides of the Red Sea that are going to affect that trade route through there. And so these articles are extremely important, and I put them in chronological dates so you can see where Erdogan's been going, and he's probably hit other meetings that I just haven't found. So on November 25th, Erdogan meets basically the Lebanese prime minister, which is Hezbollah. That's on November 25th. That's right before they went into Israel. And so he probably knew this was coming because Erdogan has a pulse on everything out here. And he is going to be the pulse as we move forward. And this is who we should be really watching, is this guy right here. So he goes down and has a meeting with the Lebanese prime minister. And of course, they're talking about this Gaza thing. It's necessary on working to achieve a sustainable truce in Gaza and stopping military operations preparation for moving work to achieve sustainable peace. We've already had the invasion of Gaza on October 7th, so he's getting all of his people lined up and making sure that they have the playbook as we move forward. And so he's been talking to the Lebanese also, which is also Hezbollah. Then, of all things, on December 1st, Erdogan shows up unannounced at COP28 to talk about Gaza with all these Muslim and Arab leaders, and this was something that wasn't planned. And this is a green a summit, and he didn't go there to talk really green summit. He went there to talk to these leaders about Gaza and how he's getting ready to do something about this. And he wants to protect these Palestinian people. And then on December 13th, we saw Erdogan receive the Libya parliamentary speaker. And so he's now hit all the African nations within the last year. And so all these nations are lined up. They know he's the Muslim leader of the world. They know he's getting ready to build the Neo-Ottoman Empire. He's been talking about this forever. They all want Israel to basically go away. And so he's lining up all these people so that he can start this process and do an invasion soon. And then get the backing of all these nations, even Iran, because they joined originally and then they get outcast over time during the secondary siege 18 months later. In the future from approximately this month. Now, Erdogan on December 17th holds secret meetings with Hamas leaders. And so this is extremely important. It indicates that Hamas leaders hold secret meeting in Turkey. And I've talked about how they're actually housing Hamas leaders in Turkey, and if one of them is assassinated, this is a real problem. And Turkey is in the process of eliminating a lot of different threats right now. Number one, there was an article that just came out recently that they arrested 300 PKK operatives in the country of Turkey. And we just saw just in the last 24 hours that Erdogan had arrested 33 people that considered Israeli spies, and they had warrants out for like 46 or 47 of these people. And so they actually believe that Israel has operatives in their country. And I talked about if one of these Hamas leaders would get killed in Turkey, that would cause an issue for um, Erdogan and Turkey, and that he would retaliate in a strong manner if that ever did occur. And so we have the secret meeting with Hamas and Turkey on December 17th. We're in January 2nd now, so this is all building up to an invasion by Turkey as we move forward, and it is going to break out soon. This is not going away anytime soon. Netanyahu's talking about potentially months to a year before even Gaza is going to be dealt with, because the hostages aren't getting released, and they're not going to get released. And actually, we've lost 2 American hostages now and a number of Israeli hostages in firefights and different things like that, or they've just been executed in the tunnels. Now, in this article, we see that Erdogan discusses Gaza's ceasefire with Egypt's al-Sisi, because al-Sisi just got reelected just before this, and so Erdogan is going down there because they have this humanitarian corridor down there. He's not happy with Egypt because they're not getting enough humanitarian aid into Gaza to deal with the Palestinians, and so this is going to come back to haunt them. And also, Egypt has sided with Israel at this very moment. That's going to change over time, and we're going to see a massive judgment against Egypt anyway, due to the history of the Jews anyway. Now, I think this is probably the most important meeting, because Erdogan is getting ready to have a meeting or with a Turkish official and Iran leader, and so I believe that he's going to okay this invasion from Turkey, and notify the Iranian authorities or government that this is getting ready to happen, and that they're all going to basically launch an attack, because they've been mobilizing all these nations since the beginning of the year, and especially after October 7th, after the attack from Hamas onto Israel. We've seen this huge ramp up of Erdogan going around to all these Muslim and Arab communities, getting all these groups connected, so that when he does do his invasion, we already have basically had Ezekiel 38 and 39 form, and Iran is on board at this time. And I just did this video about the paradigm and how Iran seems to be joined at the hip at this moment, that as we move forward in the next 18 months, and after the original siege on Jerusalem, what's going to happen here in the next month or so, we would see Iran fall out of favor with Turkey, and that they would actually be attacked by Antichrist as we move forward. And that would be a Daniel 8 effect, because the Kurds would be pushed towards the east, align with Iran, and then Turkey would destroy them. But Turkey will get down to Egypt first prior to that happening. And so there is a process to how this occurs. So I just want you to be aware of all these connections, and that Erdogan's already done his drive to unify his 10 nations that are getting ready to go against Israel. I believe if we see an invasion around the 6th, and or between the 6th and the 15th, that on the 15th, based on Tentavet of January 15th of 588 BCE, when the original siege on Jerusalem happened through Nebuchadnezzar, we would potentially see an additional siege in the future on this very specific date on January 15th of 2024 as we move forward. Is Erdogan getting ready for this invasion? Has he put his coalition together? Is everything formed to get ready for Ezekiel 38 and 39? Because now, in my opinion, based on the changes of the paradigm, Ezekiel 38 and 39 actually has to happen first, and then we will see over time in the next 18 months a drive against Egypt, and Iran will fall within that time zone just prior to the 18 months, and we see an additional second siege on Jerusalem as we move forward. This is going to get really interesting. So be safe out there. Watch how this forms. Watch the Red Sea. There's a lot going on in this area. If they shut this geopolitically down in this area, and you see the Middle East in flame and all these trade routes shut down, prices of everything are going to go up. And I just saw today the bond market is starting to melt up again. And that is a problem because the rates are moving up. This will be a hyperinflation event, not a deflationary event. And so if the bonds do correct, and you see the 2-year at, let's say, a 4 or 5, and the 10-year is above that, you're going to start to see double-digit home loans and things like that as we move forward. Car loans, credit cards are going to go up. All these things are going to go up, and it's just going to tax people to death as fuel is moving up, which is driving hyperinflation on food, rent, and everything else as you move forward. This is just going to keep breaking down. So if you haven't put your oil in your lamp, at this very moment, you need to do so because things are just going to get worse out here and it's going to cost you more later. And that's not economic advice. That's just the reality of the situation on the ground. So God bless everybody. Keep your eye on this thing. Be safe. Watch the next month. I'm giving you 3 dates to watch for. January 6th, a potential start of an invasion by Turkey, or a build up to an invasion against the Kurds into Syria, which will end up moving down through Libya or Lebanon, Israel, down into Gaza, towards Egypt. The second thing you need to be worried about, and the second date that you should be watching, is January 15th, which 10 Tevet of 588 BCE, which potentially could be a full siege on Jerusalem by all these proxies or 10 nations. You actually have 2 more dates because you have January 30th, which would potentially be a 6 seal event because Israel would be attacked on the 15th. They would give power for an hour on January 30, potentially a 6 seal event. And then we essentially could see a signing of the treaty with the nations on February 5th because the Antichrist will have risen by then and be on the ground amongst us. So there is a lot happening out here. And you need to be aware of all these things as we move forward because it will matter to you as we move into 24. And it looks like 24 is going to be extremely volatile out here and potentially be extremely ugly if these things start to play out. So God bless everybody. Have a safe day. Find the open door, find Jesus, and prepare your oil to get ready for this. So God bless and be safe out there.